Dare we open Pandora's mystic box?
To every generation, a slayer is born, except this time there were 6.
This is the dimension of imagination. You are entering the mystic zone.
Do you ladies see that aura? Something wonderful this way comes. Welcome to the Mystic Order podcast. We are the Mystic Order of East Alabama fiction writers. I am Mystic Joanne, the Mystic Defender.
I'm Marion, the Mystic Dog Whisperer.
I'm Katie, the Mystic Oracle.
I'm Mary, the Nebulous Mystic.
And I'm Gail, the mystic love queen.
And that is because today, ladies, we will be speaking about love. You know, they say that every story that has ever been written is a love story. Every good story that has ever been written is a love story. What are your favorite love stories? It can be one that you had when you were a child.
Harold and Maude is my favorite love story.
I love that myself.
And I'm beginning to identify with Maude because I'm now her age and I'm going to a lot of funerals with handsome young guys.
But have you thrown your ring into...
No, I haven't thrown my ring yet. And the handsome young guys have not been pretending to commit suicide or Harry Carey.
Gail, I just watched that movie night before last, maybe in preparation for this podcast. And yeah, I have noticed that you have quite an admiring flock of young men. So maybe there's
And can
something
you
to
blame
that.
them?
Of course not. Of course not. Gail even has young stalkers.
Yes, I like being stalked. And in fact, I wrote a poem about stalking an old boyfriend on the World Wide Web, and later I intend to read it on this broadcast.
We will definitely come back to a stalking poem about the love. Oh, me, yes. Well, love, like I said, love is everywhere. Love is what you make of it, I think, to some extent. You know, I was looking through some things. There is a 5 languages of love. Has anybody ever heard of that? And I know that, you know, some people just don't express their love by saying, I love you. They do it by other things like good works and good deeds.
I not only have heard of it, but where I was working before I semi-retired, we all knew each other's love languages, and we're careful to express our gratitude and appreciation for one another in each other's love languages, and it made for an easier workplace.
Get out
Do the
of
mystics do that?
We should. I think I sent y'all an email asking you to take your love test so that I could now communicate with you in your love language.
I couldn't answer any of the questions.
I cheated. I cheated on the love test.
I want to know the results.
No, actually, I didn't read it. I actually went to work today because I'm not retired.
Oh, yeah, but we've had this assignment for well over 2
For a
months.
long
I've been
time
working
ago.
straight for 2
Yes.
months.
I know that Jimmy's love language, my husband's love language, is acts of service.
Well,
He is
why don't
always
you tell us
doing.
what they are first?
Well, first,
Acts of what?
acts of service.
I've never heard of that particular act.
Well, yes, you have, because Bob Langley's the same way. He likes to do things for you.
Tell us
Oh,
the
I
He
language.
doesn't necessarily tell you that he loves you, but he does things for you. Words of affirmation, you know, that
You mean
is-
how he changes the TV with his remote control for me?
he goes, honey, what channel would you like to watch?
That hasn't happened at our
Remember
house
how
yet.
I used to put the dishes up on a shelf you couldn't reach? I've been there when that love language broke out.
Acts of service.
How many years have you been married, Joanne?
I've been married longer, I think, than anybody at this table.
Well, how many?
44 years. This year.
44 years. So
44.
I'm at 30. Well, Bob says we're at 37, but I thought it was 36. But
No,
who
it
knows?
is 36. Bob, you said it was 37.
Oh, no, I thought it
All
was
right,
30.
Maud.
But anyway, so when I get to 44, does that mean Bob's going to actually ask me what to do with the remote control?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. I can tell you for sure that's not going to happen. But back to the 5 languages of love. Words of affirmation. That is, when you tell people how wonderful they are and you give a lot of compliments and tell them how much you appreciate what they do. And then there's acts of service that we have talked about where people will do things like watching the kids. We were talking about watching grandchildren a little while ago. And affection, it's just what it sounds like. It's a person who gives hugs and kisses and likes to touch, that people who like to touch. Well, never mind, Gail. And
I'm thinking in my mind, who might that be?
Quality time is just the love language of being with somebody, just enjoying being in their company. Nothing else has to be, just being fully present in the conversation or whatever. And then gifts, that there are people who show their appreciation by giving gifts.
Yeah,
So-
that's me.
You give gifts. Yes, you
Yes.
do. We have the Great American Giveaway many, many times because Gail brings us a little something each.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you're talking about expressive love. I always look at this as receptive. How you interpret what you interpret as showing love. Like for me, words of affirmation are not that important. For me, acts of service is way that's my by far number one. And for me, luckily, receiving gifts is not something I need from my loved one, thank God, because my husband doesn't give me gifts at all. The last gift he gave me for Valentine's Day was baby clams in a can, and he put little smiley faces on it to show he loved me.
On the baby clams?
Right, just because he felt like he should give a gift.
Oh, on the can.
On the can.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, I think of the love languages, I haven't taken the course or anything, as how you perceive being loved.
I think I told you about the Christmas where my son Rivers opened all his presents and my husband Bob opened all his presents. And then my son said to my husband Bob, "Dad, where's Mom's present?" And Bob looks at Rivers and goes, "Rivers, didn't you get your mom a present?" But my present was, I thought it was hilarious because I knew good and well I could buy myself anything I wanted, and so I did.
And I think I think you're saying the way you perceive love, but isn't it the way you perceive love the way you give love? So if I think my love language, if you will, is affection. And so I like getting hugs. I like people being touchy.
Yes,
You know,
it works that way.
Yeah.
Does it matter who it is? I mean, like, could the butcher be touchy and you
Well,
be...
there are some
Mr.
creepy
Bill?
guys that have... Mr. Bill doesn't know I exist, and that really hurts my
And
feelings.
he's not a butcher anymore either.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And Mr. Bill is affectionate in his own
In
way.
his own way. He gives
He is.
gifts. He gave me my Swiss Army knife.
Oh, see there? He gave me an axe.
Perhaps you all should explain a little bit about who Mr. Bill is without naming too many names.
Well, Mr. Bill is a gentleman that works at a grocery store who is very attentive. He's very good at what he does.
He knows what's in stock. He
And he's
helps you
fond of the
find it,
mystics.
And he's a fan of the
And he
mystics.
follows the mystics through the grocery store and tells them jokes.
And he has all of our books.
Yeah, that counts.
That counts for a lot.
That's what I call affection.
There you go. There's
here's
a
love
language
for
of
me,
love.
audience. If you have our books or if you listen to our podcast, that's all I need from you. Well, I don't know. Roses could be all right. I particularly like yellow ones, but that would be all right.
Whatever happened to oak leaf hydrangeas?
Listen, I have 10 new oak leaf hydrangeas in my woods. Not one of them given to me by any of you guys, but a friend of mine moved out of her house and said, "Take everyone in the yard." I can't stand the people who bought this house.
I was going to say again, a gift that is a language of love. That woman.
Well, I did notice when you could go and take the quiz that they had all these different categories. You could take them for your
Now, where do you
romantic-
take this quiz? At Haley
On
Center?
the link I sent you.
Oh, that link.
Yeah, and so you could take it for kids, or you could take it for workmates, or you could take it for men at the grocery store. But Marion, why couldn't you answer any of the questions?
because I apparently didn't go deep enough into following links. And all the questions that it was asking and what I was looking at seemed to be your romantic partner.
Oh, okay.
and I don't have a romantic partner. So it was sort of.
That's a shame. An audience, I hope you're listening out there, that our Marion has no romantic partner.
And if you want to be my romantic partner and I have to pick one of these 5 things, I'll take acts of service.
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
I need some painting done. I need some sanding of floors
Plumbing.
done, some plumbing done. Yes, I
Need
do.
work on your car.
Yes. Yes.
And preferably have money
And the quality time, not so much. I've got Acorn TV
and dogs.
and dogs.
Yeah.
Words of affirmation. I'm old enough now that I don't
No.
need those. Affection, please not. Please no.
Well, when I think of love, I think of our lazy boy recliners,
Me too.
which
There you
is
go.
we get in our lazy boy recliners about 4:30 in the afternoon, and this to me is love. We have our supper there, we watch Jeopardy there, and then we go to Netflix.
And that would be quality time.
Yes.
You guys are just you know
Yes.
chilling out together.
And if you find somebody to do that, to watch your British mysteries and have quality time and not to talk during the mysteries or bother
There's
you.
no chance Bob Langley's going to talk during the during Acorn TV.
That kind of quality time would be nice, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
In fact, I'm not sure Bob can talk.
The Bob can talk.
I think
The
my
Bobs.
whole relationship with Joe is built on quality time, and much of that is walking the dogs at Kiesel Park and then watching movies at night. And we don't have to talk to each other. We can each listen to our own podcast or whatever, but just hanging out.
That's why people love babies, is babies can't talk. People love babies because babies can't talk, so they can't disagree with you or prove you wrong
That's
or
why
question
people love dogs, not
or
babies.
dogs too. So I think that's probably a real positive for any relationship is one of the partners doesn't talk. And then there's
I will have to disagree because my sister Libby.
Because you can talk the
loves-
ears off a brass monkey,
Thank you,
Joanne.
dear.
That's
Well,
why.
There's my brass monkey without its ears sitting over there. Mary, I'm kidding. Don't look.
I was looking
We
for
all
Jimmy. I thought she was calling Jimmy a brass monkey. Thought Jimmy had snuck in and
But we all know what to get Joanne for Christmas next year.
a Jimmy.
brass
A brass monkey with no ears.
Talking about why people love babies, Libby loves babies, and Libby my sister has always loved babies. But as she said, when they get opinions, she doesn't like them so much anymore.
Aw.
But I'm the opposite. I love teenagers.
Teenagers?
Teenagers,
I do
because
too.
they have opinions.
I like it when they turn 33.
Is that how old Rivers
Yes.
is now?
Yes. You know, every time I used to complain about Rivers, one of my friends would say he's not through unfolding. And so now when someone complains about their child, I'll go, oh, he's not through unfolding.
you
And I
tell me
really
that
think
quite a few times in the past.
I think it's true, though.
Definitely think children do not, quote, unfold until they are in their 30s. That's what I see mine finally settling down. Michael just turned 36.
I didn't unfold until I was in my 30s.
I'm not sure you're unfolded yet.
She is continually blossoming.
I know. When she shows up as Holly Golightly at, a perfectly plain party, I'm thinking Marion is unfolding.
That's not
Have
a
I
bad
done
thing.
that lately?
I don't know. Have you?
Have you been to a party lately?
No,
There we go.
no.
No,
You don't go
possibly
out
not.
in flu season.
No, I don't.
Yeah. I wish I hadn't.
I know, bless her heart.
And I have masks
Let's
now.
ask Katie about her love life. I'm not sure
She's
what
hiding
she
over
has
there.
to say.
Katie is the quiet mystic like Judy used to be.
Not always.
I know, not always.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Sometimes
strike me
just
as a
have to-
wildcat, Katie.
That's it. That's me. Well, I just love listening to all of your stories, and I'll be honest that my favorite love stories are the ones that don't go well.
Oh.
You know, I love a happy ending and all, but I really love a story about love that's about challenges, and sometimes they don't end well. But maybe that's because to me that's what life is. You know, you can
That's
love
true.
things and it
What-
doesn't always end well.
What story doesn't end well? What love story?
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's
I
that.
gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
even
mean, they're
even
both
more
dead,
modern
not just
fiction.
one of them.
Has anybody been listening to the Modern Love podcast?
No.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So, and then it's the TV show as well as the podcast. So, not all of those turn out well, but they're real. And I think that's part of what I love
Oh, I
about a
think
good
I
love
did-
story is
I
for
did watch it. The first one was about the doorman who took
Yeah.
care.
you. Yes.
That was
That was fun.
fabulous.
It was.
And
Yeah.
then some of them got weird, but that was
Well,
wonderful.
aren't they based on his actual letters?
I don't
the-
know.
What's
Who's-
his name who does that column? How unprofessional.
I can't remember his name, but Cheryl Strade's involved too, who wrote Wild.
Yeah, yeah. She did Dear Sugar.
Ah.
I had a very good time sitting down to think about what love is, biologically speaking. And I already
Uh-oh.
knew some of this stuff, but it was just an enormously self-affirming little research bit because now I understand myself so much better. So do y'all want to hear a couple of the things that I
I
love?
do.
I'm
I'd
afraid
love to.
to.
The main thing that impressed me so much was that, you know how meet somebody and there's all the sparks and you're in the beginning stages and blah, 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 and there's butterflies, and then that ends. You know, you can look at me and say, oh, but no, I'm still romantic with my husband. But no, you're not. That actually ends. But now I understand the biology
Mary, have you
behind
been peeking?
it.
Have you been peeking in my windows again?
That it has to end. Of course, it's based on neurotransmitters. I won't even go through the stages of love, which the first one is lust, and we all know that's governed by estrogen and testosterone, and we can move right on from that because we know about that. The second stage is the romance stage, and it's governed by norepinephrine, dopamine, and phenylethylamine. That
Can
doesn't
you
matter.
get that at the Kroger pharmacy?
No, you
I
cannot
bet you
without a
can.
prescription.
I bet you can.
And no, but that's what it is. You get addicted to love. There are some people who get
Yes, you do.
addicted to love.
To that particular stage of love. And that
Yes.
stage is affiliated with, and those neurotransmitters are affiliated with the feeling of energy, high motivation, butterflies in the stomach.
Oxycontin.
O6, not yet. That's not yet. That's the later stage.
I think that's what they
Really?
put in
Yeah.
my cough medicine last week.
It may have been.
Maybe. But it also is, it makes you it heightens your awareness of everything, and so it causes a level of stress in your body. And a lot of times people in this stage of love forget to eat. It works as an appetite suppressant. It's really a
Oh.
wonderful thing. And people get addicted to it. And it's the same, it's treated as, well, you don't treat love, but this can exist in people with obsessive compulsive disorders when thoughts of your loved one you're obsessed with them. It's similar to somebody who's OCD in other ways.
Have you ever known people who have these, say, college romances or a teenage romance and cannot get over that person? I mean, they
Yes.
may
Yes.
go on
Yeah.
and-
Years and years later.
and marry someone else and
Yeah.
maybe marry 4 other else's, but it's that one person that they
Yeah.
absolutely can't get over. I have a friend like that. She's now 72.
Oh, my.
And she's still, in fact, I counted. I saw her for lunch this week, and I counted how many times she said his name.
Wow. And when was that relationship in her life?
I think it's been over for 25 years.
Is he still alive?
Yeah.
Is she in contact with him?
No.
That's interesting. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move on with my science lesson so we can continue this podcast.
Okay.
So here's what happens. Your body recognizes that you're in this heightened stress state, and it works against that. And so if you're still hanging out with this person and you stay in this butterflies in your belly state, eventually your body says, this is not going to do, and starts sending out the next round of neurotransmitters, including serotonin and vasopressin. And they work to calm that state of stress down.
Vasopressin, isn't that what you put in your shoe if it hurts your foot?
Yeah, vasopressin with an arch. I think it is a diuretic. Those are the hormones or chemicals or neurotransmitters, and I'm getting my words mixed up and thinking about feet. That are well, you talked about arches and
Yes.
putting them in your
Oh, okay.
shoes.
Yes, I love for somebody to rub my feet.
You know, Quentin Tarantino's got a foot fetish, but that's another. So moving back to your next stage of love.
How do you know this?
Because I watch his movies.
I mean, does he like to rub feet? Because
He prominently features feet in all of his films.
Yeah.
He's too old for you, Gail.
he's too old for me.
Yeah, he's not 16.
Oh, that's true. Is he cute though?
Yeah.
This new stage of love is your attachment and commitment stage.
Ah.
And that's where your drug-like hormones come in, the oxytocin-y things, like when you're bonding with babies and all of that. And
Heart medicine.
And if you stay in your relationship, this is when you become an old shoe. And some of us, like me, this is my favorite. This is the stage of
Yeah.
relationship I like. I like the old shoe. I'm not crazy about the romance part. I really like the comfort part, the attachment, the commitment part. And it's all governed by your hormones, and you can't do anything about it. You can't stay in that la-la.
But if
giddy
people
stance.
have hormone imbalances with all their other hormones, certainly they must have these hormone imbalances too.
Oh, yeah, this
I
is
must have,
This
for
is
sure.
a typical biological system.
Could you
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 can
s-
only speak in generalities.
I've been in the
with
old shoe
science.
stage since I was 16, I think.
Oh. No, I like the romantic stage. I like that giddiness, and I mean, I really did.
When you talk about OCD, I think I probably am addicted to the giddy stage. But I realize what is going to follow the giddy stage is I'm going to start looking for an exit.
Well,
And there's just no point in continuing
and
this.
that's your body saying, "I can't stand this anymore.
Right.
Got to get
and
out."
So I did a lot of work not to get back in the giddy
Now,
stage.
are these stages for men and women as well?
Yes, but they differ slightly for men. In the attachment and commitment stage, during sex, during orgasms, the oxytocin is released for women in any case, but for men only if they have an emotional attachment to the woman they're sleeping with. Isn't that strange?
Yes, I'm wondering how this study was done exactly.
Well, I didn't. You can just Google it. It's all over the place.
Google did it.
Google did it. No,
Okay.
no. I
Professor Google.
You know, when I read these things on the internet, I always go to the original source and read the abstracts. I don't just read it off BuzzFeed.
But
or
yeah, but
whatever.
that's very interesting what scientists said, this year we're going to study love.
Well, I think it's probably a pretty universally, something that people want to know about. It's there's a lot of
are the
studies
love
out there.
studies funded by the United States?
I'm sure.
These were all done at universities here.
I see.
Have y'all read books such as Smart Women, Foolish Choices?
Yes.
And
Have I ever told you that story? Oh my gosh.
mm-mm.
My best girlfriend, all of my best girlfriends were married 4 times. And
Well, we're your best girlfriends.
well, yes, now you are. At one stage of my life, all my best girlfriends were married 4 times, all right? But the best girlfriend that you know, and I'm not going to say had been married 4 times, and she was dating this guy, and she was very serious about him. And I thought, oh, here we go again. And so she broke up with him. I thought, hallelujah, thank the Lord. And so for her birthday, I gave her Smart Women, Stupid Choices. And I went in and I said, this is your birthday present. And we were big on giving presents, and just started opening it. And who comes out of the kitchen? Hey, Joanne, Bets and I got back together. I went, give me the book back. Give me the book back. She had not opened it at that moment.
Oh, good.
Luckily, she did. When she did open it, she thought it was hysterical.
One of
But-
the books that I read, and I'm not a big fan of self-help books, but one of the books that I read back in the day was Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars. And
yeah.
that actually made a lot of sense, because I could see I could see myself, I could see what he said as being true. I would treat the person that I was supposedly in love with the way that I wanted to be treated,
Right.
and that isn't necessarily how
Right.
a man wants to be treated. And so I had to learn. I
Mhm.
learned a good bit from
That's
reading
the premise
that book.
behind the love languages, is
Right.
to learn your partner's love
Right.
language, so you
Instead-
can express love the way they see
Right.
it. Blah blah blah.
Well, what stage are you in when he starts looking at younger women and leaves you?
That's his addiction to the first round.
And don't you think that men have, like, what's the line about how men go from flower to flower to flower?
Well, the reason for any biological thing to exist is to be more, to make
Yes,
more
to
of
make-
themselves.
to make more of
So
them. That's
got
a-
a pretty compelling case for men to seek younger women when they're.
Well, I
Oh,
just happen
hags
to
are
have brought my
done.
poem called Ode to Divorce.
Gail, would you share your poem, Ode to Divorce, please?
I'd like to share my poem called Ode to Divorce. It's not 3 pages long, but it is a page long. Now, I didn't bring Ode to Pluto, but I did bring Ode to Divorce. Just as you've started to go to pot, your husband's testosterone begins to rot. He goes into crisis of midlife and finds himself a brand new wife. Your hair has started to turn gray or blue, and he's definitely leaving you. No matter how you diet or how you dress, he's moving to the Holiday Inn Express. Your knees hurt and you're tired. Worse, from your marriage you've been fired. There is no other, he'll tell that lie, finding myself before I die. Oh no, 'cause there's a Betty or an Ann, Margaret, Joan, Bernice, or Nan, or really the worst scenario, there might be a James or a Joe. Don't try to be kind so he'll come home. You'll end up broke and still alone. Take the money, take the house, take the stocks, 'cause he's a louse. Get the condo or he'll buy a Porsche. Hire the best lawyers for divorce. Don't try to be reasonable or even fair. Just put him in the timeout chair. To the lockbox arriving first, leave him with hunger and with thirst. Take the savings and his pension. Gee, I hope there is no tension. Please don't weep or show emotion, for he has lost all devotion. Don't reason, plea, beg, or cajole. Just be cool and get the gold. You've raised the kids, they're fine. Maybe Dad's lost his mind. What about all the years you spent? Surely Dad will wake and relent. While you're lounging in Jamaica, don't think about how he forsake you. Pity him, for his time will be raising babies at 70.
Yay. And eating at McDonald's. You know, back to those men, you can actually transfer a gene in a polyamorous mouse. Wait a minute. From a monogamous mouse, a gene that binds vasopressin, and the polyamorous mouse will turn into a monogamous mouse.
What color are these polyamorous
I
mice?
think they're calico.
Does that mean that if you have a strange spouse, you could give that person an injection of some sort and solve the problem?
Maybe
Or
our
a pet
grandchildren.
mouse.
Maybe our grandchildren will be able to gene therapize their
Maybe
did some
so.
gene therapy on their straying husbands.
I'm just curious, in your research, did you run up on anything from Dr. Ruth?
No, I did not. I kind of missed Dr. Ruth. She was fun.
What about Dr. Phil's son's house?
What about it?
The dining room wall is all the decoration on the dining room wall is just total weapons.
What?
Like
Remind me who Dr. Phil is.
He's the one on that Oprah gave his start to. Who I don't know that he's really a doctor.
Does he have a
No,
niche?
because-
A niche? Or is he just
Dr. Phil.
self-help everything?
He
Yeah.
self-helps everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Phil
Is he
McGraw.
kind of chubby and bald?
Yes.
And he and his wife walk out of the studio after every show.
I don't know because I don't have cable TV, but only knew him when he was on Oprah. But they've got the staircase is metal, but it's all horns, antlers, and horns.
horrible.
It's just an awful house, and it's on the market for millions and millions of dollars. But what does it say about the Dr. Phil family that their dining room decoration is an entire wall?
Is this
of
Dr.
automatic-
Phil or Dr. Phil's son?
Well, it was Dr. Phil's house that became Dr. Phil's son's house. This was trending on my computer the other day. And
Is it
so,
called the Horny House?
it just might be. I don't know. It's
This would sell it. You know, I know a couple of realtors in Auburn could sell that house in a minute. Just calling it the Horny House.
well. Anyway, I
Right,
just
back to love poems.
stumbled upon. Well, I mean, it was tangentially connected because of Dr. Phil.
Yeah, we go to the love doctor.
Not to change the subject, but I
Please.
was thinking the other day about first loves,
Yes.
which is, most of the time, that's just a good story. But my first real boyfriend was a guy who was so painfully shy that, needless to say, I never got a kiss and hardly even eye contact. But he would ride his bike all the way to my house, which was several miles away from his house back in the day when there weren't sidewalks or anything. And he would sit in the yard with me and didn't talk or anything else. But he showed up one day and he brought me a trinket that he'd made. And so he'd taken a slab of mica and he'd taken some crystals and put them on there like sort of a cross or thing, and gave that to me. And nothing to hang it on or anything. But anyway, so about 3 weeks ago, my grandchildren were going through old jewelry boxes at my house, and they found this
Oh,
piece.
Katie, how
And it
sweet.
was, I know, it was one of those like, wow. And so I Googled him, and he is still alive, and I don't know much else. But anyway, it was like.
So
I'd
you're
even sort of
stalking your
forgotten.
old boyfriends
No, I just
too.
Googled him. That doesn't
That's
count
a
as
sweet-
stalking
It
unless you
does,
over
it
and over
does.
and over again.
It is
but it was
stalking.
a sweet.
So I'd rather have
Yeah.
some mica with some
Mm-hmm.
little sparklies than a gold ring
Yeah.
from Tiffany's.
Yeah, and we didn't
Not
rush
me,
into
audience.
anything.
Not me. This is your queen speaking. Don't send me any mica. I'll take the gold.
I have a
Go ahead.
Jinx. I was so in love with my first boyfriend. It was embarrassing. And he was fond of me. One of my children found a note he had written to me when I would go away for the summer, and he signed it fondly. And his name, by the way, is Dusty Davis. Dusty, are you listening? You should not have signed that note fondly. That was so mean.
That's how I sign my letters.
That's your love letters.
All my
But
letters are love letters.
I was so in love with him, and it was an unbalanced relationship from the beginning. And, of course, we broke up, and he broke my heart, and life goes on. And you know how when somebody breaks up with you, you think, oh, I just hope
I wouldn't know.
someday that they regret it or something, you know. And anyway, we were grown, and we each are married to our own folks. He did call me and invite me to his wedding, and he said he wanted the first girl he loved to meet the last girl he loved. Isn't that sweet?
That is
yeah, but
very
is
sweet.
it the last girl?
Oh, yeah, they're pretty thick. But he followed me down the street in Auburn, and we were adults, and he came up behind me, put his hand on my shoulder. I turned around, and he apologized to me for the way he had treated me in high school. And it was like, man, that was almost worth getting treated so badly to be apologized to.
It's like when that obscene phone caller called and apologized for making obscene phone calls to me.
That's a real good story.
Yeah.
Somebody made obscene phone calls and then apologized?
Years later. I never knew. He never identified himself,
okay.
but he called back
Oh.
and apologized for the obscene
I think
phone
I've
calls.
told you this, but I used to get obscene phone calls between, well, we had quarters back then, not semesters at college. We had quarters. And so between quarters, I'd get an obscene phone call from this guy, which just totally pissed me off because I guess all the people he really wanted to call were back home with their parents.
At
And of
the
course, I was a
beach.
town girl, so I'm what's left for his obscene telephone calling. This is what I told him, you know, that I resented it totally that he called me between quarters to say these things to me, and he never called me back.
Oh, my.
You were honest with him.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're honest with an obscene telephone.
Not too long ago, I found a pocket off of a boy's shirt, and I know whose shirt it came off of.
Did you rip it off his shirt?
Yeah. We used to do things like that. We would rip that thing off remember the thing on the back?
Yeah, the little
Or if you liked him or he liked you, he'd rip his pocket off and give it to you. And I remember the night he
What
did
about
that.
ripping the bodice?
Well, this
that was like 100 years before that.
this was in the late 60s, actually late 60s. And I know that pocket could not have still smelled like British sterling, but I promise you when I picked it up and held it, I could smell British sterling.
You still
Wow.
had the pocket?
Yeah, I did. I don't know if I might, I'll go through these things where I purge all these memories every now and then, and I don't know whether I made myself let the pocket go or whether I put the pocket back in a jewelry box.
Well, they say that for memory, scent is the strongest indicator.
Mine was
smell.
Hawaiian surf.
They live
Hawaiian
right next
surf.
together in the
Hawaiian
brain.
surf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved. I dated a guy that wore Hawaiian surf, and I think of him. And I have stalked him on Facebook. All my old boyfriends that I looked at on Facebook, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I think I just dated them because they were cute and I liked their car or something because...
Well, you were
Not-
blooming. You were unfolding.
No, I don't think I was because these people were ignorant. They belonged to the wrong political party. And, and also, I mean, I was just shocked when I'd look them up at their profile.
That's happened to me too.
Also, one of them looked cross-eyed, and I know he wasn't cross-eyed.
When you
in
dated him.
college. Yeah, he was not cross-eyed, but somehow he's managed to get that way.
Gail. Well, I could truly say I'm trying
If
to
you're out
think.
there, Dave,
I know a good
Don't
eye doctor.
Call him out, please.
yeah, there's
They
an
should all be
operation
called
for
out.
that.
They, and I didn't date. I think I dated twice throughout high school. So Jimmy Camp, I did. Went to Catholic schools. You
Oh
weren't
my
allowed.
God.
She's stuttering a
date.
lot.
I know.
Getting that out. So wait, is Jimmy the first man you dated?
Truly, yes.
I
for a
dated
long
so many
period of
people I
time.
can't even remember who they are.
And I know that there were a lot of women that did that, but I guess there was one before him, another David, who was a doctor's son, and he was probably a first crush.
I was in Montgomery at a banquet, and this guy was sitting across from me, and he asked me, had I gone to Auburn? I said, yes. And he said, and I said, my family were all Auburn graduates, and that my brother had been an ATO at Auburn. And he goes, oh, I was an ATO at Auburn. And he said, what was your brother's name? And I told him, and he said, I dated one of his sisters. And I said, even though I have no sister, well, I'll certainly tell her. I'll remind her of this. Tell me your name again.
So I cannot name names for this story, but here's a true story that happened to someone local. While a student at Auburn met this cute girl one night out at a bar, and they enjoyed their time together. And this was before the world was scary like it is now. And they went home and did the Cirque du Soleil. And the next morning, she said, "I gotta go. I'm here to meet some old family I've never met. Have lunch with."
And it turns out to be
He said,
him.
"Oh, really?"
Oh, no.
So, yeah, they had to go to lunch and pretend they'd never met, and turned out they were long-lost cousins, and she was just in town to meet these families.
And I was worried about my boyfriend being cross-eyed.
I had a
I don't think they had
girlfriend.
children.
Maybe this only happens in small towns, but I had a girlfriend who remarried. Her husband left her, and so she remarried, and then realized that the guy she remarried had some familial, connections. Nothing that the law wouldn't allow, but she used to put up a chart when all of the family got together at the lake for these reunions. She would put up a chart and remind all the teenagers to go check the chart before they got romantic with
Oh, my
anybody
goodness.
at the reunion.
There's a family in this area. They have a
That was
reunion,
brilliant.
and they wear they're good breeders. They wear name tags, and if they're from one of the grandfathers or something, they have a little yellow dot on the tag, and another might have a green dot on the tag. Well, a lot of them have yellow, green, red. blue.
We are podcasting from Alabama. For those of you out there listening to us from places far away.
Well, when you mentioned the sister thing, so I have a sister who is and always has been very beautiful. She's always the cool one in the
Oh
family.
yeah, like you're not, Katie.
Well,
Katie.
it's true.
Katie's
It's
the
true. And
doll.
she
Katie's
is
the beautiful mystic.
But
She
you know,
is the gorgeous
she was
mystic.
she was very popular, and so these days the stalking thing, people contact me to find out where Jay is.
Oh, dear.
Jay's
Or
your
her
sister.
ex-boyfriend. Jay is my sister. So her
It's not your brother.
boyfriends. No, not my brother. So her ex-boyfriends will, track her down via me, which is, I vaguely remember, is sort of how I got some dates after Jay wasn't interested. Then they'd ask me out.
Right.
So we just had fun. It was, it was
Yeah,
pretty fun.
that's what I used to do
Clothes,
to my
boyfriends,
roommates.
whatever,
They'd
you
call
just
for
trade
the
'em.
roommate, and even if she was there, I'd go, "She's not here right now, but this is Gail." So
Mary Littleton said to me once about your family, Katie. All the Lamars are gorgeous, just beautiful people inside and out. And Mary Littleton came up to me at a party and she said, "I have a crush on all of them."
well, now that you've mentioned Mary Littleton, I have to tell you, and this is in one of our books, and I think it's either in Mastering the Art of Winch Cooking or The Ploy of Cooking. But Mary Littleton was telling me she had a new power mower. And I said, well, Bob and I have power mowers. We love them. We have 2 of them. We ride them all the time at the farm. They do the job great, and I don't know what we'd do without them. And Mary goes, that's Paramore.
It's a good image.
Yes, that's right. Get those ears cleaned out.
Well, I could read my poem about stalking my old boyfriend online. It's very short, and it's
Okay.
Go ahead.
I have found your picture as well as your biography on the World Wide Web. So, you like to garden and play with your grandchildren. I might say you're handsome still, but you left favorite books blank. You were never a Renaissance man. Yet now you grow irises and other exotic, I started to say erotic, exotic life forms. Were you masked in your youth or disguised in a web?
He just had it unfolded. May I read one of my favorite poems, love
Please.
poems ever? It's very short, and I didn't write it, and y'all all know it. You can join in with me. It's
Why didn't you write it?
because Langston Hughes wrote it first.
Oh, I love Langston Hughes. Go
I do
right
too.
ahead.
My students, I used to have them memorize this every February. It's called Harlem Night Song. I'm sure y'all know it, and if not, I'll just read it for your pleasure. Come, let us roam the night together, singing, I love you. Across the Harlem rooftops, moon is shining, night sky is blue, stars are great drops of golden dew. Down the street a band is playing, I love you. Come, let us roam the night together, singing.
Oh, that's
Very
fabulous.
Isn't that
Very
just
nice.
so pretty?
Yes.
That's a quality time love poem with a little word of affirmation thrown in.
Oh, what's your favorite love poem, Marion? I think I've got it in front of me.
What is it? The River Merchant's
Uh-huh.
Wife. I like The River Merchant's Wife an awful lot.
That's the only
It's-
poem other than my own poem. That's the only poem I brought because it is such a
It's
love poem.
absolutely beautiful.
And I'm going to read it later. But let's see. I want to ask Katie, what's your favorite love poem?
You know, I'm not sure I could just pull one up. I hate it when I feel like I have to pick my favorite of anything. Because
Okay,
there's
what's,
so
what's
many
one
that-
you love?
Well,
Yes.
I'm not sure I could tell you that either. But you know what I probably would be more, what comes to mind sooner are love songs.
Yes.
That
Yes.
songs about love, which is poetry, just
Mhm.
pop to
Absolutely.
music. So when my husband and I were dating, we had several moments where we thought, you know, you're dating, you're not sure, and then thought, I like the answer that you just gave. And so one of them was something about eggplants, and it was from 1,000
1,000 years of 100 years of
yeah, about the
solitude.
whether or not you like eggplants, which was the characters. If you have to read the story to get the whole background of that. So we connected on eggplants. But then
Don't tell anybody else that.
I know.
No, I think that's
But
wonderful.
yeah, aubergine. That was
Aubergine. Oh, yeah.
But the other thing was that the song in The Sound of Music, I must have done something good.
Oh, yes.
I think that is the most,
Mm-hmm.
and that was another one. So we have the lyrics of that framed in our bedroom.
I go-
Because that's such a lovely song.
I go back to my roots and, you know, believe me, of all those endearing young charms, which I gaze on so fondly today, would melt by tomorrow and flee from my arms like some fairy gifts fading away. Thou would still be adored as this moment thou art. Let thy loveliness fade as it will. And around the dear ruin, each wish of my heart would entwine itself verdantly still. It's an old Irish song.
Oh, that's pretty.
I don't even know who
That's
wrote it.
lovely.
A beautiful love story for people of an age is also Garcia Marquez' Love in the Time of
Cholera.
Cholera.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
quite
Right.
a beautiful love story.
And of course, Like Water for Chocolate is a lusty love
Yes, it
story.
is.
Very lusty.
Very lusty
It is. When I had a husband
back then.
back then, one of the first books he gave me was Pablo Neruda's love poems.
Nice.
And I remember when he went away for the summer to sell Bibles for the Southeastern Book Company or Southwestern Book Company, I sent along with him John Donne's poem about the compass points. You know
Yes.
what I'm talking about? My mind's gone blank. I know the name of it and I can't think of it.
I
But
can't either.
you put the compass point here, but wherever you go, the other end of the compass point will follow. So I was quite the romantic in my early years.
And did he sleep in his car while he was selling Bibles?
They had rooms to stay in. The Southwestern Company gave them rooms to stay in, but it
And
was
they went door to door
yeah, it
selling
was
Bibles.
a cult, is what it was.
Mhm.
Did he ever sell one to Flannery O'Connor?
He never sold one to Flannery O'Connor, but I went up to get him when the summer was over, and saw quite a bit of tobacco country and met some characters right out of Flannery O'Connor.
And did he make money selling Bibles?
No. He ended up owing money because he gave people the books if they couldn't afford them.
That's very Jesus-like
Oh
of
my
him.
gosh.
As he should have.
Wait,
What's that?
Is that the mystic moment?
Oh,
it is time for the mystic
time.
moment. Yes.
Hmm.
I have one. Today, as I've told my mystic sisters, we are going to be entertaining the Les Saisons Study Club, which is an old study club. And I don't mean the people in it. I mean that it's probably been there 100 years, literally. And our hostess is a friend of mine. Her dad is a wonderful friend of mine. He's a local vet. And the lady who invited us, though, had a moment, and she could not tell me where the hostess lived. She said, "Oh, it's out Oak Bowery Road." Well, Oak Bowery goes on forever. I mean,
All the way to Oak Bowery.
Yeah, all the way to Oak Bowery, precisely, which is none too close here. And so I called her brother, who is an attorney and a friend of mine, and he happened to be in court, but this day and age, while you're waiting your turn, you have your phone with you, and he was texting me, and he said, "What's up?" And I said, "I need to know where your sister lives." Now, they've been in this community for as long as I've known, and he says, "I don't know my sister's address."
Now that's
Address
love.
or where she lives.
Which I know, which is even worse because he lives next door to her.
Oh, well, then he can just guess.
Yes,
Like
he
two
could have
numbers higher
just
or
guessed, and
lower.
they
Well,
live
if-
across the street from their father.
You could get his address.
I did get his address
Okay.
at that. Yeah,
And then
at
we
that
could
point.
either make it to the
Actually,
hostess or the father.
We can, but I just cut the chase and I called Tippy. I said, "What's your address?" Your family does not seem to know. But as I was texting,
Is this on the Mystic calendar?
it is on the Mystic calendar, and we
Where
will
is the
discuss.
mystic calendar?
It's not on my mystic calendar. It's not
Y-
on my
It's
you're-
not on mine.
I'm trying to
You're
think
the
of
Mystic calendar.
I set one up, but nobody ever checked it, so I quit putting things on.
Oh,
it.
that Mystic calendar.
Where does one go?
That is a mystic moment. Where is the mystic calendar?
Where are our bylaws?
Where are our bylaws?
Oh,
Ooh, I'm going to
shoot.
get busy.
I know. I was going to say.
I had a mystic moment this week. I went home to Jernigan to celebrate my mother's 92nd birthday,
When is your mama's birthday?
January 3rd.
Oh my gosh! I
And
wish I know.
So
I gave them liquor.
what she wanted more than anything else for her birthday was for me to like help her wash some crystal and polish some things and clean out a trunk. So when I was cleaning out the trunk, I found the Christmas card, and those of you who have Facebook probably saw it. I found the Christmas card I got in 1972 from Rod McEwen,
Yeah.
who had a big
Oh.
hand in making me the silly little romantic that I was.
Rod McEwen
Absolutely.
wrote you?
Well, his press person, I'm sure, did. I'm sure Rod McEwen didn't sit down and write that card, but yeah.
Well, all I can think of, I came late to Rod McEwen, and by the time I started listening to him, I was just too cynical. But come on, he's got a line in one of his poems where he says, "Some have said I taste like almonds."
I'm allergic to
Gail
almonds.
couldn't. Gail
You
could
wouldn't
not
like Rod
lick him.
McEwen.
I would be allergic to Ron McEwen. Don't bring that letter around.
I
telling
used
you.
to listen to The Sea. Do you know my poem, The Sea? Do you know my friend, The Sea? She sees everything we do. Because, he would get very dramatic. But I found it in French, and I don't speak French. But I would lie in my bed at night with that 8-track tape of The Sea going, and that's what I would go to sleep to. Rod McEwen I think it was him reading, but it was in
Yeah.
French.
Speaking of French, the little fairy that lives in my computer changed my Facebook to French.
Oh, I love it. That happens.
And
That's a mystic moment.
I don't speak French. I'm fluent in German and Pig Latin, but do not speak French. Well, actually, I don't speak German, but
Well, Facebook also has pirate as a language setting.
well, I didn't know I had set this to French, but I was because today No, not today, but because there was a podcast one of our podcasts I wanted to talk about, I was interested in doing that, which is very hard to do when you don't speak French and you're trying to navigate Facebook.
So I have a senior mystic moment
Okay.
that just occurred while we were doing this podcast, which is that the eggplant story is in Love in the Time of Cholera, not in 100 Years of
let's
Solitude.
clarify that.
So I just want to make sure. I knew that. I just didn't say that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
But
so
they're
that
both wonderful
everybody,
books.
Anybody who's fact checking us,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the one who completely gets off the rails here.
I also thought of one of my favorite love poems, but I don't remember the name of it.
Or why you liked it.
It starts
Or
off-
what book it's
Can
in.
somebody identify this? Had I the heavens embroidered cloths?
No, I can't identify it.
It's beautiful.
No, but I can, turn my phone
I told
on.
my fellow swimmers yesterday I was reading a very good book, but I couldn't remember the name of it, but it was one word and it was longer than 8 letters.
It's only like 4 lines. It's beautiful. 5 lines. It had I the heavens embroidered cloths of silk and
Well, while we're looking for this on the phone, I just have to say about my own romance with my husband. He doesn't write me love poems, or we don't have anything on our wall, but he introduced me to Tom Waits and drop the mic, as they
Wow.
say. That's all you need. And
that's right.
he just had to play some Tom Waits, and that was it. We've been together for over 30 years.
It's a Yeats poem, and it's had I the heavens embroidered cloths and wrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half light, I would spread the cloths under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's a beautiful poem.
You
That
know,
is
Ezra
lovely.
Pound's wife, Dorothy Shakespeare, was friends with Yeats and introduced Ezra Pound to Yeats.
Right, I didn't know that. Let me shout out to my friend. I don't say words like shout out, but I just did it. I had a friend in
I said
undergraduate.
drop the mic.
I had a friend in undergraduate school named Mr. Jarecki. We were in Ruth Britton's American literature class together, and he would come over to my apartment after class, and we would take turns reading the lesson for the next day to each other. We would like make tea or make coffee and just cuddle up and read the American literature.
Y'all would cuddle up
And
with a guy named Mr. Jarecki.
yeah.
Is he living still?
Yes, he lives in either Washington or Oregon, and we email quite frequently. He went from here to North Carolina and then became a lawyer and then married. He married a lawyer, and they live, I think, in Oregon. I remember him reading this, or I remember the two of us reading this back and forth.
The River
the
Merchant's
River
Wife.
Merchant's Wife.
A letter.
That's one of my memories from girlhood.
The thing about this today, I've always loved this, and I always knew that Ezra Pound wrote it, but he didn't.
Oh.
No. It's a translation from Lipo.
Right.
It's
That's right.
Chinese.
But he translated.
He translated it. But I've told 1,000,000 people they would love this Ezra Pound poem. And I think he gets credit for it, but you can hear the Chinese in the poem. While my hair was still cut straight across my forehead, I played about the front gate, pulling flowers. You came by on bamboo stilts, playing horse. You walked about my seat, playing with blue plums. And we went on living in the village of Chokan, 2 small people, without dislike or suspicion. At 14, I married my Lord Yu. I never laughed, being bashful. Lowering my head, I looked at the wall. Called to 1,000 times, I never looked back. At 15, I stopped scowling. I desired my dust to be mingled with yours, forever and forever and forever. Why should I climb the lookout? At 16, you departed. You went into far Kotian by the river of the swirling eddies, and you've been gone 5 months. The monkeys make sorrowful noise overhead. You dragged your feet when you went out. By the gate now the moss is grown, the different mosses, too deep to clear them away. The leaves fall early this autumn in wind. The paired butterflies are already yellow with August over the grass in the west garden. They hurt me. I grow older. If you're coming down through the narrows of the River Kyne, please let me know beforehand, and I will come out to meet you as far as Chofu say.
Very sweet.
Isn't that a great point?
This is something that probably would be another mystic podcast, but your first crush on someone older than you, and I was just heard that made me think of it with Mr.
Jarecki.
Well, that's all Marion did was
Jarecki.
fall in love with older men.
Mr. Jarecki was my exact same age, though.
Oh, and as many
Yeah.
times as I've talked about how nice those cute young things are, she doesn't pay any attention.
Oh yes, love, love, love.
Ask Mary where people can find us. She knows.
Mary, where can people find us?
The best way to keep up with the Mystics is to follow us on our social media accounts. You can find information about us, our books, our other creative endeavors, updates, events, links to the podcast, and links to our website. We're on Facebook at the Mystic Order of East Alabama, and we're on Twitter at the Mystics Pod. If you don't use social media like Joanne,
I do occasionally.
When? Name one time.
Yeah.
While
While she's thinking, if you want to just email us directly, we have a nice, easy to remember email address. It's the Mystics Pod. That's an S at the end of Mystics. The Mystics Pod at gmail.com. Of course, you can just Google us and you'll find us. The podcast is available on all the popular podcast platforms and on YouTube. And like I said, the links are on social media. And if you are enjoying our podcast, please remember to subscribe. We don't have a lot of subscribers. We get a lot of people saying, yeah, I'm listening to your podcast. But if you subscribe, then we know you're listening, and we appreciate it. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and tell your friends and share.
And as we're talking about love, remember, ladies, to always be the flame.
Not the moth.